Imagine this. You and your family have planned the perfect vacation for months. You're finally somewhere peaceful, ready to relax and make memories. But out of nowhere, your car is suddenly surrounded by police lights. And before you can even understand what's happening, you're being accused of a crime you didn't commit. You watch in disbelief as your kids look on, scared and confused, while officers treat you like a dangerous criminal. Now imagine that the officers have no idea who you really are, that the father they're arresting is actually an undercover FBI agent, working to take down corrupt officials who might be closer than anyone suspects. This isn't just a story about a wrongful arrest, it's a tense battle between justice and prejudice, where courage and truth must fight to survive. Stick with us as we reveal how a family vacation turned into a nightmare, and how one man's secret identity changed everything. The Johnson family had been dreaming about this vacation for months. Marcus Johnson and his wife Lisa had spent the whole year working hard, long hours, stressful days, and little time to relax. Their two kids, Emma and Jaden, had been counting down the days since school ended. Finally, the big day arrived. They packed their bags, loaded the car, and set off for a lakeside resort in a quiet little town far from their busy city life. The resort was everything they had hoped for. The sun was shining bright, the water sparkled like glass, and the air smelled fresh with pine trees all around. The Johnsons spent their first morning swimming in the lake and having picnics by the shore. Lisa laughed as Emma and Jaden chased each other on the beach, their carefree smiles filling her heart with joy. Marcus felt a rare sense of peace, grateful for a break from his demanding job. After dinner on their first evening, the family piled into their rented SUV. The town was small and calm, with just a few cars on the road. Marcus drove slowly, taking in the quiet streets, feeling thankful for this time together. Lisa and the kids chatted excitedly about plans for the next day, fishing, hiking, and maybe even a boat ride. The warm glow of the streetlights mixed with the cool night air as they made their way back to their cabin. Suddenly, Marcus caught a flash of red and blue lights in his rearview mirror. His heart jumped. "Pull over," the voice of one officer came over a loudspeaker. The family exchanged worried looks, unsure of what was happening. Marcus pulled the car to the side of the road, the kids growing quieter as the police cars came to a stop behind them. Two officers stepped out, their faces serious and unwelcoming. The taller one approached Marcus's window, while the other walked toward the passenger side where Lisa was sitting. From the very beginning, their tone was cold, almost hostile. "License and registration," the taller officer demanded. Marcus handed over the documents without a word, hoping the situation would be cleared up quickly. But then came the questions, strange questions that didn't seem to fit. "Do you know anything about a stolen car in this area?" the officer asked sharply. Marcus blinked in confusion. "No, sir. We just arrived here today on vacation." The second officer moved closer to the back seat, peering inside at the two children. "Are you sure you're not involved? We've had reports of a black SUV matching this description." Lisa, sensing the growing tension, quietly reached for her phone to record the encounter. "Sir, we haven't done anything wrong," she said calmly, but before she could start filming, the officers noticed her phone. "Put that away," the first officer barked. "No recordings allowed." Lisa hesitated but complied, slipping the phone into her purse. Marcus's mind was racing, trying to figure out what was going on. Why were they being treated this way? Why did the officers assume they were guilty without any proof? Then came the accusation that shook Marcus to his core. "We're placing you under arrest for suspicion of auto theft," the officer said, pulling out handcuffs. "No, you have the wrong people," Marcus said firmly but politely. "We've done nothing wrong. This is a mistake." But the officers weren't listening. Marcus felt a sharp tug on his wrists, as the cold metal of the handcuffs clicked into place. The children watched silently, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Emma clung to Lisa's arm, trembling. Jaden looked out the window, unable to understand why their father was being taken away. Lisa's voice cracked as she pleaded, "Please, sir, this is a family. You're making a mistake." The officers ignored her and started leading Marcus to the police car. The small town that had seemed so welcoming just hours ago now felt hostile and dangerous. Marcus's mind was spinning. He tried to stay calm, thinking of how to protect his family in this nightmare. Inside the police car, Marcus sat quietly, watching as Lisa comforted the kids. He wanted to reassure them, but he knew he had to keep his composure. The injustice of the moment burned inside him. He was a law-abiding citizen, a father who only wanted to spend time with his family, and yet here he was, arrested without cause, treated like a criminal just because of the color of his skin. The officers didn't realize one important thing: Marcus Johnson wasn't just any man. But at this moment, he had no way to reveal his true identity without risking his family's safety, so he stayed silent, waiting for the right moment to turn the table. As the night deepened and the police station came into view, the Johnson family's dream vacation had already taken a dark and frightening turn. The peaceful days they had imagined were slipping further away, replaced by uncertainty and fear. And yet even in the darkest moments, Marcus vowed to protect his family, no matter what. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, the officers still had no idea who they were really dealing with. To them he was just another suspect, an innocent man, mistaken for a criminal, or so they thought. But beneath Marcus's calm exterior was a secret he had guarded fiercely for months. Marcus Johnson was not just a father on vacation, he was an undercover FBI agent. For the past year Marcus had been deep undercover, working to dismantle a complex web of corruption involving city officials, crooked law enforcement officers, and organized crime. The investigation had taken every ounce of his focus and skill, but when his cover was compromised months earlier, his top priority became protecting his family. The Johnson name and story they used for their vacation were part of a carefully crafted false identity designed to keep them safe and off the radar. Now, as Marcus sat quietly in the back of the police cruiser, he forced himself to stay calm. His training kicked in immediately: stay composed, observe everything, and find a way to turn the situation around. Inside his jacket was a small encrypted phone app, disguised as an ordinary watch. With a quick swipe and a few taps, he sent an urgent coded message to his FBI partner, Agent Rivera. The message was simple, but clear: arrested, need backup, location Lakeside Resort Town. Meanwhile, back in the front seat, Lisa was doing everything she could to protect their children. Emma and Jaden were shaken, their wide eyes searching for answers in the darkness. Lisa held them close, whispering comforting words to ease their fear. Her heart pounded as she took out her phone and started recording the entire encounter. Every word, every action. It was the only way she could ensure someone would hear their side of the story if things went wrong. The officers in the cruiser exchanged glances, but remained unaware of Marcus's true identity. They continued to treat him like a common suspect, ignoring the family's pleas and dismissing Lisa's calm explanation as defensive lies. At the police station, Marcus was led inside for processing. The sterile, cold environment felt like a trap closing. The officers didn't realize the storm they had just stepped into. Agent Rivera received Marcus's encrypted message and immediately knew something was wrong. Without wasting a second, Rivera alerted the FBI field office and requested immediate assistance. Rivera also contacted the local police chief, but his tone was firm and authoritative. "This is a federal matter, do not interfere," he warned. The local officers had unwittingly put themselves in the middle of a high-stakes federal investigation. Back in the interrogation room, Marcus sat facing two officers. Their questions grew more aggressive, trying to break him down, but Marcus was prepared. He answered calmly and confidently, dropping subtle hints that something was off. When asked about his occupation, Marcus carefully described his work in vague terms: law enforcement, federal investigations, sensitive cases, but never revealed too much. The officers grew suspicious of Marcus's composed demeanor and guarded responses, but they didn't realize that each word was calculated. Marcus's goal was to buy time until his FBI backup arrived. Meanwhile, Lisa was still outside the station, anxiously waiting with the children. She had managed to send the recording to a trusted friend who promised to share it with the media, if necessary. The situation was spiraling quickly, and Lisa feared for her family's safety. Then, without warning, the station's atmosphere changed. The doors burst open, and a team of FBI agents rushed in. They were led by Agent Rivera, whose face was stern but relieved to see Marcus alive and unharmed. The local officers were stunned. "This man is Special Agent Marcus Johnson of the FBI," Rivera announced firmly. "He was taken into custody by mistake. This is a federal operation." The room fell silent as the officers processed the revelation. Some looked embarrassed, others defensive, but none could deny the truth. Marcus was released from the handcuffs, his composure never faltering. Yet beneath the calm surface, he felt a mix of relief and frustration. The arrest had put his family in danger and risked the entire investigation. But the surprises didn't end there. During the FBI debriefing, Rivera revealed new information. One of the officers involved in the arrest had suspicious connections, links to the corrupt officials Marcus had been investigating for months. It was no coincidence that the family had been targeted. The arrest was a calculated attempt to intimidate Marcus and derail the investigation. This revelation sent shockwaves through the team. The very people who were supposed to uphold the law had been working against justice. Despite the danger, Marcus refused to back down. He knew that exposing the corruption meant risking everything, including his own life and his family's safety. Outside the station, Lisa gathered the kids close. Her phone continued to record, capturing their story and the truth behind the injustice. It was more than just a family vacation gone wrong. It was a fight for justice, dignity and truth. As the night wore on, the Johnson family remained united, their strength tested but never broken. Marcus's secret had been revealed, but it also became their greatest weapon. With the FBI backing them, they prepared for the battle ahead, a battle that would expose corruption, challenge prejudice, and demand change. The hidden truth had finally unfolded. The tension in the interrogation room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Marcus Johnson sat quietly across from the two local officers, his hands resting calmly on the table, though his mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour. The questions had become sharper, more aggressive, accusations veiled as inquiries, and it was clear the officers wanted to provoke a reaction. Marcus held his ground, carefully measuring every word. He knew he couldn't reveal too much yet, but he also wanted to drop enough hints to make the FBI team aware of the urgency. The officers seemed convinced they were in control, confident they had made a significant arrest. They didn't know their world was about to be turned upside down. Suddenly, the heavy door to the interrogation room swung open with a sharp bang. Several men in dark suits and badges strode in confidently, their presence commanding immediate attention. Leading the group was Agent Rivera, Marcus's trusted FBI partner. "This is Special Agent Marcus Johnson," Rivera announced with authority, his voice cutting through the thick silence. "You have no jurisdiction over this case. He was taken into custody under false pretenses." The two local officers exchanged stunned glances. The taller one's face flushed with embarrassment, but neither man dared to challenge the federal agents. "We have reason to believe that your department's recent actions are interfering with an ongoing federal investigation," Rivera continued. "This arrest was a mistake, a costly one." The atmosphere shifted instantly. The power balance in the room had changed. Marcus was unshackled, and the FBI agents began reviewing files and evidence. It was clear they were taking control. Despite the clear evidence of error, the local officers refused to apologize or admit wrongdoing. Their defensive posture revealed an underlying resistance, an unwillingness to acknowledge the deeper problem. But then came an even more shocking revelation. As the FBI agents dug deeper, Rivera uncovered disturbing connections between one of the arresting officers and the very corrupt officials Marcus had been investigating for months. "Agent Johnson," Rivera said quietly but firmly, "this arrest wasn't random, it was planned." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "They wanted to intimidate me and my family." It was a hard truth to swallow. The people entrusted with protecting the public had instead been weaponized against an honest man fighting for justice. Rivera's team quickly pieced together the network of corruption, bribes, cover-ups and threats that extended beyond the city limits and into the local police department itself. The arresting officer in question had been feeding information to the corrupt officials and attempting to disrupt the federal investigation by targeting Marcus's family. The Johnson family's nightmare was not just a case of mistaken identity, it was a calculated attack. The FBI immediately moved to put the corrupt officers under investigation. Internal Affairs was notified, and federal oversight was brought in to ensure the inquiry would be thorough and unbiased. Marcus was officially released, his name cleared for now, but the danger was far from over. The corrupt network was vast and powerful, and they would not stop until they were exposed or silenced. Marcus knew that his family's safety depended on staying one step ahead. Back outside the station, Lisa held the kids close. She was exhausted, but determined. The viral video she had taken during the initial arrest was spreading quickly online, drawing public attention and support. People were outraged at the injustice and demanded answers. The media coverage brought more scrutiny to the small town and its police department. Community leaders began calling for change and accountability, but the Johnsons weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for all families who had ever been victims of prejudice and abuse of power. Despite the overwhelming challenges, Marcus's resolve only grew stronger. His mission was clear: expose the corruption, protect his family, and ensure justice would be served. That night, as the Johnsons gathered in their temporary cabin, the weight of everything they had endured pressed heavily on them. But amid the fear and uncertainty, there was also hope, a hope fueled by truth, courage, and the promise of change. They knew the road ahead would be long and dangerous, but they were ready to face it together. The shocking twist had revealed the depth of the fight ahead, and Marcus Johnson was prepared to see it through to the end. The night after Marcus's release, the Johnson family sat together in their cabin, the weight of the past few days hanging heavily in the air. But despite the fear and exhaustion, something had changed. There was a spark of determination burning inside all of them, especially Lisa. She had watched the officers treat her husband like a criminal, ignoring their pleas and the truth. She had felt powerless watching Marcus cuffed in front of their terrified children. But now, with Marcus freed and the corrupt officers exposed, Lisa knew that staying silent was no longer an option. With trembling hands, she pulled out her phone and uploaded the full video she had secretly recorded during the arrest. The video showed everything: the officers' cold suspicion, the false accusations, Marcus's calm refusal to accept the charges, and the raw fear in Emma and Jaden's eyes. Within hours, the video exploded across social media. It was shared thousands, then millions of times. News outlets picked up the story, headlines reading "Family Wrongfully Arrested, FBI Agent Among Them." People from all over the country sent messages of support, outrage, and calls for justice. The Johnsons had become symbols of resilience and hope in a world that often seemed indifferent to injustice. But with the spotlight came new challenges. Marcus and Lisa were invited to appear on national talk shows and news programs. Cameras flashed as they sat side by side, sharing their story with the world. Marcus spoke with quiet strength about the dangers of racism and abuse of power, emphasizing the need for accountability and law enforcement. Lisa described the terror their children had experienced, and their family's determination to fight back. Their courage inspired thousands. People reached out with stories of their own struggles, of moments when they had been unfairly targeted or silent. Grassroots groups formed overnight, demanding police reform and better training to prevent racial profiling and corruption. But standing up to such powerful forces also made the Johnson family a target. Threatening messages appeared on social media. Anonymous calls warned them to stop speaking out. Lisa's phone rang late into the night with intimidating voicemails. Marcus received veiled threats at his office, reminders that the corrupt officials and their allies were watching. Despite the fear, the family stood strong. They leaned on each other, drawing strength from their love and shared purpose. Lisa continued to document their journey, making sure their voices couldn't be erased. Emma and Jaden, though young, showed remarkable courage, asking questions and expressing hope that one day things would be better for all children. Meanwhile, Marcus threw himself into his work with the FBI. The investigation into corruption deepened, revealing layers of deceit and cover-ups that shocked even the most seasoned agents. Every piece of evidence mattered. Every testimony was a step closer to exposing the truth. But with each breakthrough, the risks grew. Marcus knew the corrupt officials wouldn't give up easily. They had power, money, and connections that reached far beyond the small town. Attempts were made to discredit him, to paint the Johnson family as troublemakers. Yet Marcus refused to back down. For his family, for the innocent victims caught in the crossfire, and for the future, he pushed forward. He worked closely with Agent Rivera and the FBI team, strategizing every move carefully to protect his loved ones while bringing the corrupt to justice. Lisa became a voice for families everywhere, speaking at rallies and community meetings, advocating for change. Her bravery reminded everyone that one family's fight could spark a movement. Slowly, but surely, the pressure mounted. Public outcry forced local officials to respond. Internal investigations began in earnest. Some officers were suspended, others faced charges. But the Johnson family knew this was just the beginning. True justice required more than arrests. It demanded reform, education, and accountability to prevent another family from suffering the same nightmare. Together, Marcus, Lisa, Emma, and Jaden embraced their new reality. They were no longer just vacationers at a lakeside resort. They were fighters for justice, their voices ringing loud and clear across the nation. Their story was a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, strength, truth, and unity could light the way forward. And so, the Johnson family stood strong, undaunted, unbroken, and united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Weeks passed, each day bringing new developments in the case that had shaken the small lakeside town and captured the attention of a nation. The Johnson family had returned home, but their lives were far from the calm they had once imagined. Instead, their story had ignited a powerful wave of change, and justice was finally on the horizon. The FBI's thorough investigation had uncovered overwhelming evidence against the corrupt officers, who had orchestrated Marcus's wrongful arrest. Bribery schemes, abuse of authority, falsified reports, and intimidation tactics all came to light. The community,
once divided and uncertain, now demanded accountability. One crisp morning, a fleet of federal agents arrived to execute arrest warrants. The corrupt officers, some of whom had been trusted members of the police force for years, were handcuffed and led away. Their faces, once filled with confidence and arrogance, now showed defeat and shame. News outlets covered the arrests live, broadcasting the moment when justice seemed to catch up with years of deception. Community leaders stood before microphones and cameras, pledging reforms that would reshape law enforcement in the town. Mayor Collins, a figure once criticized for turning a blind eye to corruption, spoke passionately about the changes ahead. This town will no longer tolerate injustice, she declared. We commit to transparency, accountability, and training that respects every citizen, regardless of their background. Police Chief Harper, who had supported the investigation from the start, announced sweeping changes, new policies against racial profiling, mandatory bias training, and independent oversight committees to ensure fairness. The Johnson family followed the news with cautious optimism. The road to healing would be long, but the beginning had been made. Back at home, the house was filled with a quiet sense of relief. Emma and Jaden played in the backyard, their laughter a bright contrast to the tension of weeks past. Lisa and Marcus watched them with pride, their bond stronger than ever. Their vacation, which had started as a peaceful escape by the lake, had turned into a crucible that tested their courage and unity. But through it all, they had stood together, refusing to let fear or injustice define them. Marcus resumed his work as an FBI agent, but something within him had shifted. The personal battle he had fought alongside his family fueled a renewed determination to root out corruption, wherever it lurked. He was no longer just an agent working in the shadows, he was a symbol of resilience and hope. Lisa, inspired by the impact of their story, began volunteering with community groups focused on police reform and racial justice. She spoke at schools and events, sharing her family's experience to raise awareness and encourage others to stand up. For Marcus and Lisa, the fight for justice was no longer just professional, it was personal. They had seen firsthand the damage caused by prejudice and abuse of power, and they were determined to make sure their story would lead to lasting change. One evening, as the family gathered in their living room, Marcus pulled out a photo from their vacation, the serene lake with the sun setting in the background. It was a reminder of what could have been a perfect escape, and what it had become instead. Lisa smiled softly. That lake almost took everything from us, she said, but it also showed us how strong we are. Marcus nodded. We faced the worst together, and we won. The children looked up, sensing the gravity behind their parents' words. Emma hugged her dad tightly. I'm proud of you, Dad. Jaden chimed in, and we're all safe now. Their home was filled with hope, laughter, and the promise of new beginnings. The Johnson family had become more than just survivors. They were fighters, advocates, and a beacon for others who needed courage. Though the scars of their ordeal would remain, so would the strength born from it. The fight for justice was far from over, but they knew one thing for sure. As long as they stood together, there was nothing they couldn't face. And every time they looked at that lake, once a place of fear and pain, it now stood as a symbol of truth, resilience, and the power of a family who refused to give up. Their story was a testament that even in the darkest moments, hope could shine through, and justice could prevail. The Johnson family's dream vacation had changed everything, but it also gave the world a new beginning. This story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, and that standing up against injustice takes courage and strength. Marcus and his family faced fear and uncertainty but chose to fight back and share their truth with the world. Their experience shows the importance of holding those in power accountable, and the need for change in how communities and law enforcement interact. No one should be judged or treated unfairly, based on race or where they come from. Thank you for watching this powerful story about courage, resilience, and justice. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe so more voices can be heard. And remember, change starts with each of us standing up for what's right. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments below. Stay safe, and see you in the next video.